Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam dear devotees. Today we are reading the book Message of Godhead by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We shall continue the chapter number 1, Transcendental Knowledge, from page number 23. In the language of Bhagavad Gita, the spirit soul is called Kshatrajna, the knower of the field, whereas the body and mind, the coverings of the spirit soul, are called Kshetra, the field. In the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, discusses the subject matter of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and also Prakriti, nature or the phenomenal world which is enjoyed, and Purusha, the enjoyer of the phenomenal world. Lord Krishna explains that all actions and reactions that take place in this phenomenal world are the actions and reactions of this combination of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, or nature and the enjoyer of nature. For instance, rice paddy is produced by the action and reaction of the field and the tiller, or a child is begotten by the combination of Prakriti, the enjoyed, the Purusha, the enjoyer. In the same way, whatever we see in the phenomenal world is produced by this combination of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. The Kshetrajna is living spirit, whereas the Kshetra is the material that the living entity exploits. Physics, chemistry, astronomy, pharmacology, economics, sexology, and other material sciences deal with the materials of the Kshetra. But the science that deals with spiritual existence pertaining to Kshetrajna reveals transcendental knowledge, real culture of knowledge. Therefore, pertains not to Kshetra but to Kshetrajna. We shall discuss all these subjects more elaborately, but for the present we may be satisfied simply by knowing that the Kshetrajna, the Purusha or enjoyer, is the central objective of all knowledge, because it is this Kshetrajna alone that creates everything in conjunction with the material body and mind and the allied physical elements. The Kshetrajna is the eternal spirit, whereas the Kshetra is matter, which is temporary and pheromical. This eternal truth is summarized in the Vedas in the aphorism Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Spirit is fact and the world is a false shadow. By false shadow, one should understand that the world is temporary, existing only for the time being. But one should not make the mistake of thinking the world has no existence at all. We really possess our temporary material bodies and minds, and we must not make ourselves a laughing stock by denying the existence of our bodies and minds. At the same time, we must always remember that the body and mind are temporary arrangements. However, the spirit encaged by this body and mind is eternal and indestructible truth. No one can destroy the eternal spirit. That is what we need to understand at the present moment. The indestructible spirit is thus above the conception of violence and non-violence. Today, the whole world is made after the culture of knowledge in relation to temporary arrangements for the gross material body and the subtle material mind. But more important than the body and mind is the spirit, which has been set aside without any proper culture of knowledge. As a result, the darkness of nescience has overshadowed the world and has brought about great unrest, disturbance and distress. How long can one enjoy external happiness? It is like washing the outer garments without putting any nourishment into the stomach. Real nourishment comes from gaining knowledge of the eternal truth, the indestructible spirit, which exists as the living entity in each and every body. The living entity is very minute, finer than the finest atom. Learned experts have said that the size of the soul is approximately 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, like a tiny dose of a potent medicine. The soul spreads its presence all over the body. Thus, we should understand that the sensitivity we experience to even the slightest touch on any part of the body is due to the presence of this living spirit throughout the body. But when this minute living spark is gone from the body lies dead, prostrate, and it cannot feel the slightest pain even if hacked by an axe. That this minute living spark, the spirit, is not a material thing is proved by the fact that no material scientist has ever been able to create the living spark by any combination material substances. Whatever can be created by the manipulation of matter is destructible and temporary. But science, the living spark, is indestructible. The material scientist must accept the fact that the living spark cannot be duplicated by material science. They can produce material atomic bombs, but not the spiritual spark of life. Material scientists have made much advancement all over the world, but regrettably, these advanced scientists have made no attempt to understand the living spark, the spirit, which is always the most important subject. This is our gross ignorance. This is our helplessness. Sri Jagadish Chandra Bose, Sir Isaac Newton, Benjamin Franklin, the brilliant brain substance of each of them stopped working utterly as soon as this little spark of living substance separated from their respective bodies. If it were possible to create this living substance by chemical or physical combination of matter, then surely some discipline or other of these great scientists would have brought them back to life and would thus have prolonged their scientific contribution to the world. But no material scientist can create a living spark by any material arrangements. And those who say they can do so in the future are the greatest of fools and hypocrites. The living spirit is eternal. He has no end and no beginning, and thus can never be created by any matter whatsoever. After all, it is within our experience that every created thing is subject to inhalation. The eternality of the spirit soul is proved through its non-creatability by material means. And thus, one who thinks that he can destroy the living spark also does not know anything about it. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, therefore emphatically declares that the living entity, being spirit, is never born. The living entity exists eternally and has no past, present or future. The spirit is never inhalated, even after the inhalation of the material body, nor does it grow or diminish by repeated material births and deaths of the body. The spiritual entity is ever fresh and new. Although he is the oldest of all, he is always different from the material body and mind, which are always subject to death and inhalation. One may now ask, why did Lord Krishna explains all this transcendental knowledge to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? The answer is plain and simple. The fight that is fought in pursuance of military duty touches the body only, not the soul, as much as eating a sumptuous feast touches the hunger of the stomach only, not that of the mind. None of these material effects ever touches the eternal living entity. The spirit soul, because the living spirit is invincible, non-flammable, non-moisture,able and non-dryable, only motion and dried up in the air. Thus, to encourage Arjuna to fight, Krishna explained in so many ways that the living entity or spirit soul is entirely metaphysical. What is known in India as Sanatan Dharma, the eternal religion, is meant for this eternal, all-pervading, unchangeable, indestructible living spirit. That is to say, real religion is transcendental to the various religious faiths that focus on the gross material body and the subtle material mind. Sanatan Dharma is not just for one particular people, place or time. Rather, it is eternal and all-pervasive. All religion or except Sanatan Dharma are meant for culturing physical or psychological changes. The influences of various peoples, places and times have led us to designate ourselves as Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Socialists, Bolsheviks and so forth. Specifically, in the field of religion, we have tried to establish many varieties of ephemeral physical and mental arrangements, varieties of denominations according to the various peoples, places and times. And precisely for this reason, we can envision ourselves changing religions. One who is a Hindu today may become a Muhammadan the next day, or one who is a Muhammadan today may become a Christian the next day, and so on. But when we attain transcendental knowledge and are established in the Sanatan Dharma, the actual eternal religion of the living entity, the spirit soul, then and then only can we attain real, undeniable peace, prosperity and happiness in the world. Being minute and thus invisible to our material eyes, the spirit soul is called inexplicable, inconceivable and so on. The spirit soul is nonetheless understood to be eternal because he is never subject to the ordeals of birth, death, disease and old age or to any other physical transformations. Therefore, if we wish to be relieved of these physical transformations and attain eternal peace and happiness, there must be vigorous propagation of the eternal religion of the spirit soul. We should always remember, however, that this eternal religion of the soul is never bound by any limitation of people, place or time. Hare Krishna, this is the end of first chapter. I served Srila Prabhupada today. Thank you.